Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio, where top performers share their secrets and they're here to help you achieve your personal and your professional goals. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and together with my truly amazing guests, we bring you inspiring and actionable insights that are aimed to help you take your life and your business to the next level. Ranked in the top 2% globally, this podcast really is a must listen, and I think I mentioned my guests. It's all because of them. So whether you're tuning in for entrepreneurial tips, career advice, or personal development strategies, get ready to turn inspiration into action, challenges into triumphs, and dreams into reality. And I'm so excited to guest Cynthia Covey Haller. And she is the author of Live Life in Crescendo. Your most important work is always ahead of you and always is bolded, always ahead of you, and co-authored with her late father, the legendary leadership expert Stephen R. Covey. This book marks the concluding chapter, or as Cynthia shared with me, a transformative final journey. And it goes beyond just enriching lives. It's a powerful testament to a family legacy grounded in wisdom and in shared purpose. So today they crafted together, I'm so excited I can't even talk. Together they crafted a story that spans generations, leaving an enduring impact on the legacy of wisdom and inspiration. Welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio, Cynthia. I'm so excited to have you here. I think I'm stuttering, and thank you for sending me this wonderful book. I've read it twice, and it is going to have a permanent place on a shelf in my entrepreneurial library, which is the shelf where I always grab things. These are books that are very important to me, and they're going to be read and peeked at over and over again.
You're so kind, Denise. Thank you for all the compliments, and I'm thrilled to be a guest on your show. I've looked forward to talking with you.
Thank you. And I'm stuttering, so it's because I'm like, oh, because I loved when we had our pre-interview. We had a terrific time, and that's when you shared so much about the book and why you wrote it and how you wrote it with your dad and stories about your amazing family. And I've read everything your dad wrote. I swear I have. Your brother has been, a guest. I mean, as a family, I find you inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
We're a normal family, believe me, but we must have something that makes us want to write books. And I'm my brother, the Trust and Inspire book is incredible that he just put out last year. So I'm honored to be included in all the great people that you interview on your show.
Thank you. And I have 2 copies of that book, Trust and Inspire. I have one that I can take out of the office and carry around with me, and the other one that never leaves this room.
That's awesome. We appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. So tell me a bit about you and why you and your dad wrote this book. I mean, there's a big story there.
Yeah. Well, it was years ago, literally in 2008, when he was just telling me all the projects and books he was involved in, and he was kind of swamped. And his personal mission statement, the last 10 years of his life, had been live life in crescendo, because he I think he adopted that because people that he would meet when he'd be speaking or be on the road or something, sometimes they'd say, well, how long are you going to keep doing this? You're in your 70s and you're still speaking and traveling like crazy and doing all this. Isn't this enough? When are you going to stop? And he just thought, and I even said to him, Dad, are you going to ever write anything as powerful as the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? And it kind of insulted him. He said, gosh, I wrote that in 1989. What do you think I've been doing since then? I feel like I have so much still to contribute. And he had put out 7 or 8 other books after that. And he said, I still have passion for my work. And, I'm not anywhere near just sitting in a rocking chair and giving it up. I'm going to do it until I drop. And so anyway, that's when he said to me, why don't you take this material, I call it the crescendo mentality material, and why don't you interview me, and why don't you write it up basically, and put some stories in there so people can see the value of continuing to learn and grow and change and adapt. And as you grow older and in every age and stage of your life, and despite circumstances and setbacks that happen to you, you still have great contributions to make, and you still need to contribute. And so I love this material. I was excited about that. And so that's kind of what happened. I interviewed him for a while and started writing. And I'm a mother of 6 kids. I'm involved in my community and in my church, and have a lot of projects and things going myself. I actually have a lot of grandkids that I love that caused me to live in Crescendo. And so anyway, it took me longer than I had planned. It actually took me 10 years, and I didn't finish it. I finished it after he passed away. He passed away in 2012. And I knew it was important to him. He felt as passionate about the crescendo mentality and continuing to contribute and grow as anything he had previously written or spoken about. So it took 10 years, as I said, and I finally got it out in September of 2021, and it's been amazing. I feel like it's resonated with people, and it's kind of just, maybe people are just finding out about it right now, but I feel like it's going to continue and be part of his legacy.
Well, I don't think there's any question about that. What did he see the manuscript at any point? I mean, dads are dads. Did he say, what are you talking about here? Take that part out. I can see it now.
We did. No, not really. He literally had so many other books and things he was writing on that he kind of handed over to me, and I just interviewed him. And I tell at the end and we could talk about this later as well, but I tell about our family's own personal journey of living in Crescendo, and how he passed away early and things. But no, I pretty much, we just discussed a lot of the ideas, and I knew what he wanted to put in here, but it was my job to put it together and to find examples of people who live in Crescendo as opposed to living in diminuendo. And if you want me to talk about those terms, I can.
Yes, ma'am. Please do. I have notes about that, because it's important. You're either one or the other, or you're somewhere in between.
That's
but
right.
You do not want to be living in say it again. You say it for me. Diminuendo.
Diminuendo. I
Okay.
saying it myself. But
I can spell it.
But we're not really a musical family. People probably said, oh, you're all probably musical. And actually, my mom had a beautiful singing voice, but besides that, we weren't good at singing. And my dad was awful, I've got to say. So anyway, but crescendo is a musical term, and that's what he chose to highlight in his personal mission statement. But as you know, we've all been to concerts and we've all heard a crescendo, which is amazing. It just, if you're in a arena or somewhere listening to a beautiful musical score, the crescendo just builds in energy and power and in, majesty. It just fills the arena, and it keeps going, and it gets louder and more powerful as it goes. And the opposite sign is diminuendo, which is exactly, as I said, the opposite. It slows and it lessens, and it's less in power and energy, and it actually ends up coming to a stop, to an end. And so the challenge that he's giving in this book is to choose to live your life in crescendo rather than diminuendo. And as you said, we can be anywhere on the continuum in different ages and stages of our life. But despite setbacks, this book is full of great stories and examples of people who, despite hard things that happened to them and what you would call real challenges and setbacks, where you wouldn't really blame somebody for shutting down and living in diminuendo, where they did exactly the opposite, and they gathered strength from what they were experiencing, and they turned it around, and it became a triumph in their life. And they had great things to contribute ahead. If they would have given up, we would never know the name of someone like Nelson Mandela, who is in prison for 20-something years, 27 years, and finally released when he's 71. Can you imagine? He comes out of prison on Robben Island in South Africa, and you'd think, he said, I realized at that point, if I did not leave this prison behind, I would be enslaved the rest of my life. I would be caught in everything that happened to him beforehand. And he felt like his life had just begun. And what happens, 4 years later, he has an influence in South Africa to the point that he is elected president, and the first Black president ever, and they're dismantling apartheid. And incredible things are happening in South Africa. So truly, Mandela's most important work was ahead of him, but you never would have thought that when he's, sitting there in a prison cell for that 27 years. So anyway, that's just one example, but I have lots of examples of people who choose to live in crescendo rather than diminuendo. But I think it's a conscious choice that we have to make in our lives every day.
Oh, listen, I agree with you. And you know what I love about this book? It's really written in 4 parts. Part 1 is the midlife struggle. Part 2 is the pinnacle of success. Part 3 is life-changing setbacks, which you mentioned, and we'll get into that. And then part 4 is the second half of life. And, there you go with Nelson Mandela. But you also say in this book that the crescendo mentality uses key principles to guide you through each one of these 4 stages of life. And I won't read them all. We'll talk about them, as we go through this. But the final, these are a list of bullet points, was detect your purpose. And I think so many people just don't quite make it there. Maybe they don't know they need to. Maybe they don't know what their purpose is. I don't know why, but I see myself included wandering around going, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing?
Right. Well, that came from one of my father's people that he really admired, Viktor Frankl, who, as you know, wrote Man's Search for Meaning, which is a powerful book telling the experiences of him in World War II in Auschwitz, and all the horrible things that he endured. And he realized that they can take everything from me. They can strip me of my family and my dignity and my titles and everything, but the one thing they can't take is the power to choose how I'm going to react to what they do to me. And he ended up to help himself, he envisioned, talk about important work ahead. He envisioned himself, even while he was being tortured and being and suffering so much in prison, he envisioned himself speaking in Vienna and teaching students about what he was actually experiencing right then. And he looked ahead. And Viktor Frankl said, we don't invent our missions, we detect them within ourselves. And I think that's really powerful, that all of us have unique gifts and talents and things to offer others, great important contributions, although that may not seem so great to ourselves, but that we need to determine what are my unique talents and gifts that I have in whatever stage of life you're in. What can I offer? What can I give that would bless others and would bring out some joy and fulfillment in my own life? One of the main quotes I like in this book that is kind of a mission statement of the book is actually by Pablo Picasso. And it says, the meaning of life is to find your gift, the purpose of life is to give it away. So what insight that is, that here we are trying to find what is the meaning in my life, and how can I give that away to help others and also to grow myself. So as you mentioned, we go through 4 different stages, and there's more stages, but I chose these 4 of a midlife stage where you feel like maybe you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. You feel like, boy, I'm not where I thought I would be at this stage. I don't think I'm not very successful. I haven't made a big name for myself. Maybe I don't have a lot of money yet, and I thought that I would. And a lot of times when that happens, people flip out. We always call it the midlife crisis, the typical, that somebody leaves their family for somebody else, or they go out and buy a flashy red car to drive around, or they do something extreme.
And get hair plugs because the comb over doesn't work anymore.
That's right. And things that you're just trying to get attention and to kind of push back and say, wow, I'm going on with my life, but am I really successful? But my father's definition of success is different. He said that you're successful if you're successful in your most important roles in life. So think to yourself, what are my most important roles? You usually start with the family. That am I a husband, a father, a mother, a sister, an aunt, a grandmother, a cousin, a grandparent? How successful am I in those most important roles to people around me that are the most important in my life? And then you would maybe branch out to your profession, like what you're doing, Denise. You're bringing what great fulfillment and purpose you must feel, because you are having so many guests on that teach their life's learnings and share it with others, and really can help people figure out their purpose and can inspire them to stop living in diminuendo, or to get control of their life and to take action and to do something. And what a great contribution that is. And then let's see. I forgot my train of thought here.
And what you said something really important, because listen, this podcast is very important to me. Anybody who knows me well or listens to me knows that I'm a highly committed introvert. I'm not shy, and I don't have any filters, but I need to be left alone. And I mean left alone for 90% of the time. I need to be in my own head and quiet and thinking. I'm very creative. But I started this podcast without any goal to meet people like you and your brother and the hundreds of other people that I've met from all over the world. But it must have been in my head at some point, because at some point I said, this is where I belong. I get to meet people from literally all over the world that I would never meet in my local Walmart. And you become my mentors in so many ways. And I'm so grateful.
That's incredible. And what a contribution. And like you said, you wouldn't have growing up, if you're thinking, oh, I'm kind of an introvert or something. I'm glad that, that label just didn't stick with you. That, I mean, what you're doing is not introverted right now.
No.
I've got to tell you, you're out there, and you're to bring out the best in others, and to bring out the things that they've learned to share with an enormous audience. And you've had such great success on your podcast. So you have found, I would say, you've found your unique gift and your unique mission. But everyone has something different, and it doesn't have to be extraordinary to make an extraordinary difference. Just thinking of a homeless advocate that was speaking to a group of senior citizens and was speaking about the homeless situation and how they could help. And one woman in her late 80s raises her hand and said, let's be realistic. How can I contribute? What could I do to make a difference? I don't get out much. I'm in my 80s. I don't have a lot of money. I'm in a fixed income and just getting by myself. I care about this, but what could I possibly do to help someone and to make a difference in their lives? And the homeless advocate said, could you donate 1 can of soup a week? And she said, yes, I could do that. She said, now think about a single mother warming up that can of soup for a couple hungry kids at night before they went to bed, so they wouldn't have to, be hungry all night. Do you think that would make a difference to that family? And she said, yes. And so she just started. Theodore Roosevelt said, do what you can with what you have where you are.
You are. Exactly. I love that quote.
A can of soup, for years, and ultimately affected, hundreds of people through that small donation, and what that did to her also, as well as the people that benefited. So we don't have to do something huge to make a difference, but we do need to identify where we are and pivot. So we were talking about the midlife, for example, that one person in his, he was almost 50 and his business shut down. He was the president, and somehow he got forced out by some partners, and here he is at 46 or 7 with 4 kids and doesn't have a job. And it's easy to curl up in a ball and feel sorry for yourself and say, they did it to me and I'm so wrong. But he thought, here's a chance to start again. What do I want to do? And he'd always wanted to go to law school. And here he was in business, and now he applied for law school and was accepted and became the oldest person in his class at 47. And he said one day, it wasn't easy. One day he pulls into the parking lot at like 5 a.m. on a cold, icy day, and it's pitch dark, and just gloom and despair sweeps over him. And he thinks, what have I done? I've got years of law school ahead of me, and how can I make a living and start over? Can I really do this? He started doubting himself, and then he felt, no, I'm not going to. My father always said, don't look in the rearview mirror as you're driving along in a car. If you keep looking over your shoulder or in the rearview mirror, you're going to end up in a ditch. You're not going to get very far. So the idea of don't look behind you, look forward. And this is what this man did. Thought, no matter what it takes, I'm going to keep looking forward and progress. And he went to law school round the clock for 2.5 years and graduated as the oldest person in his class when he was 49, and set up a law practice at 50 in a new profession, and within a few years had as much work as he wanted. And so sometimes we have to take control of our life and pivot, as Adam Grant says, think again, reinvent yourself, think of something else that you can do, and decide to change, and it'll make all the difference in your life.
And while you were talking about this man, I was thinking, okay, he had to start over, and he was in his, mid to late 40s. But think about the life wisdom he had already accumulated.
That's
He
right.
was running around going, Mom, I need you to send me some lunch money. I mean, he had been there, done a lot of things, and I'm sure that he tapped into that to get where he needed to be.
That's what people don't realize. The last one that I talk about, and we can get to the other ones as well, but the last one is the second half of life. And people don't realize they have much more in their 70s, 80s, 90s to offer than they think they do. Just like you mentioned, people have a lifetime of experience and wisdom and connections and networking and valuable experiences that have got them to that point. So what an opportunity if you decide to retire, which my dad always called the R word. He never believed in retiring. He said you can step away from a job or a career, but never retire from making meaningful contributions in other people's lives. That was his definition of not retiring. Don't retire from making contributions to others. And so you can be working at a 9-to-5 job and still contribute, or you can, if you do step away from it, take the valuable talents and unique skills and gifts that you have and look around you. Is there somebody you can mentor that would could learn from your valuable lifetime of experience. And you usually don't have to look further than your own family. Somebody in your family, maybe a grandchild or a relative, a cousin, or someone who is struggling with an addiction, somebody that doesn't have a job in your family and needs some confidence and needs someone to be a bridge builder and to help them get to where they want to be. And what a great contribution you could make if you consciously look around you and identify somebody that you could mentor. Because as my father usually did in a lot of his presentations, he would ask to a large group that he'd be speaking to, was there someone in your life who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself? And he said about 2/3 of the audience would raise their hand. And maybe you can think of somebody like that, Denise, someone that...
Well, mostly it was myself that didn't believe in me.
Right. And so he said, if somebody believed in you more than, and his definition of leadership is my favorite definition. He believed that leadership is seeing another's worth and potential so clearly that they are inspired to see it in themselves. Mm-hmm. So just like what you're saying, you didn't believe in yourself, or you needed somebody to, but someone who would see your worth and potential so clearly that inspires you to think, maybe I do have something, maybe I can do it. And so who are you mentoring? He would always say, and so are you attempting to do the same thing with another person? And so anyway, that's just one of the challenges of when you're older, thinking, well, what do I do with my time now? There's so much you can do that would be really powerful in other people's lives. You just have to start.
I agree. And Cynthia, while I'm listening to you, I'm scribbling down notes because things pop into my head as you're talking. And, you're talking about mentoring other people or spending your time differently than maybe you did a year ago or before COVID or whatever has happened in your life. But I wrote down, upskill yourself. And I can almost hear your dad's voice saying that you can always upskill yourself.
Yeah. He always said, don't pigeonhole yourself. You've got to keep learning and growing and changing and increasing in knowledge and wisdom and things that you're learning, not the opposite. And especially as you age, you need to. He always said you've got to broaden your circle of influence, where you have a tendency to shrink it when you get older. But he himself went through maybe what you'd call a midlife, where he had been teaching at a university for 20 years and enjoyed it. Apparently it was the class to take on campus. They said you didn't have a degree from that university if you didn't take his organizational behavior 358 class. And so he kind of had a little niche there, but he felt like, I don't know if I'm progressing. And he was starting to develop the 7 Habits material, and he was giving it to his students, but he didn't feel like they, were applying it or using it how they could, because they were students, and he wanted to try it out in the workplace. And so he began consulting on the side as well as teaching. And it just invigorated him. He loved it. He would give the 7 Habits material to a company and to an organization, and they would just eat it up, and they could see the value that it had, and they'd apply it directly to their organization and really got some great results. And so he decided, even though he'd always considered himself a teacher, that's what if you would ask him, he would say his profession was being a teacher. He loved that. He thought, I'm not, maybe my greatest work is ahead. Maybe I can influence more people and do more and grow myself if I step away from this. And so he left a secure job with insurance and all that. He's the father of, my parents have 9 children. I'm the oldest of the 9 children. And he stepped away from it and started his own Covey Leadership Center. Had to put our house in a cabin in Hawk and just kind of start again, with my mom believing that they should do this as well and being a partner, and started writing, and eventually produced the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which has has sold 40 million copies and translated into dozens of languages, but he never would have reached that potential and lived in Crescendo if he didn't take that first step and kind of a risk and stepping away from something that was comfortable kind of into the unknown, and hope, and hoping and believing that he had important work and important contributions still ahead. And the fact that I'm talking about this last book of his shows that that's definitely true.
So Cynthia, did at any point did your dad and your mom say, we didn't see this coming? We believed in what we were doing. We used the crescendo mentality. We believe in gratitude. We believe in ourselves, that we did not see 40 million copies being sold.
Yeah, that was amazing. I would agree, they didn't know it would ever come to something like this, but my dad did feel like we still have contributions to make, and I can't do it in my present job at the same level forever. And so, you don't have to do something bold like quit your job and start a new career, but you can look around and say, okay, if I feel like I'm dissatisfied, if I feel like I'm not appreciated, and my talents aren't being used, what more? You've got to be proactive. My father always taught use your R&I. And that we were saying as kids, all of us kids hated when he would say that, because you'd come home from school and say, oh, I'm flunking my math class, but because my teacher's an idiot, he doesn't know how to. And we would try to blame him, and he would say, well, what does he have to do with it? Use your R&I, make it happen. And we're like, R&I meant resourcefulness and initiative. And so what he was really saying is, it's up to you. You're responsible. If your teacher's not good, get out of the class, talk to the principal, get some tutoring, ask for extra help, ask questions, do what you can. There's no excuse to fail. You've got to just make it happen. Use your R&I. And we just like, oh, I know, use your R&I, but I'm telling you, Dad, this teacher's really bad. Well, that's, what are you going to do about it? And so it's up to us. He didn't let us blame circumstances or people or things out there. And we just kind of joked that we had a good balanced parenthood, because our mother did let us blame people, and she would massage our hearts. Oh, that dumb teacher, I'm so sorry. That's awful. We just would laugh that if you wanted to have your heart massaged, you'd go to our mom. If you wanted the truth, you'd go to our dad.
So I suspect that you took a little bit of both and eventually, put it all in a big soup kettle and made something out of it and said, okay, I get it now.
That's right. But we have to, it's easy to blame circumstances and to blame yourself, but you've got to take responsibility for your own life. And, talking about the, one of the stages is the setback one, the life's challenges. What are you going to do during life-changing experiences? And you've probably heard of Elizabeth Smart, the young girl actually from my state, from Utah, that was kidnapped at 14.
Yeah, we've all heard of her. And she has turned her life into something astonishing.
Oh, it's incredible. She's not a victim. I mean, no one would blame her from curling up in a ball and not doing anything the rest of her life from what she endured with this monster. But she decided early on that her mother told her, this man has taken 9 months of your life from you. Don't let him take another second. You be happy. And that's God will take care of him and what happens to him. But you just worry about stepping forward and going onward. And she served a mission for her church. She graduated from college. She's an accomplished harpist. She got married and has 3 children and started the Smart Foundation, which helps people from all over the United States and even the world learn to not become victims, to overcome, what happened to them if it's some sort of abuse or kidnapping. And I mean, her greatest work was still ahead. And you never would have, thought that when she was, 14 and being abused and being treated like this. But what a powerful influence she's been, and how she has found her unique mission and gifts through a really hard circumstance.
And you know what I keep thinking of? We're talking about people, Nelson Mandela and Elizabeth Smart, who just somehow they knew that they had to live with themselves, in themselves, and be of service at some point to other people. I think, is this teachable, Cynthia? I mean, we don't have to walk around with our head bowed and go, oh, woe is me,
Yeah,
unless we just choose to.
that's right. My father wrote that if you want to make small changes in your life, work on your attitude. But if you want to make big and primary changes, work on your paradigm. So this crescendo mentality is a paradigm shift, a shift to see yourself in a different light. That okay, this has happened to me, but I am not a victim. I was fired from my job, but I'm not stupid. I still can accomplish something. I've just gotten divorced, but that doesn't mean I can't find love again and I can't find happiness in my family. And so determine that he also said that you're not a product of your circumstance. You're a product of your own proactive decisions. You're the determining force in your life. And over again, there's examples of people who have, you can look around, you probably know people in your neighborhood, maybe some friends or different people that shouldn't be as happy as they are right now with what they've gone through, or have suffered some great health issues, but yet they still are growing and learning, and they're still blessing other people and doing what they can to contribute to people around them. And what an inspiring examples those people are in our lives.
And they are, whether they know it or not. And I wrote that down. You are the determining force in your life. That's pretty brilliant. I'm going to put that up on my whiteboard. But what I had to learn, because when we're young, look, every teenager is a sociopath. I don't think they can even be identified as sociopath because they just are. They eventually grow over out of it, or they don't. But as in all teenagers, I was about as arrogant as they came, and I thought I was just the smartest thing in the room. I kind of was sometimes, but I also wasn't shy about it. And I had to learn that how I presented was not always pleasant. And
Right.
then I would wonder, well, why are things not really going my way? Well, Denise, you're kind of a jerk. Get out of your own way. And once I started realizing that people do watch and they do learn, they're paying attention to how you're saying, what you're saying, if you're not saying anything, but you're always being observed. So you have to be aware that when you're being observed, you need to bring your best person. And it doesn't matter if you live alone, as I do, blissfully. If I open the door to the UPS guy, I'm smiling, saying, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm not going to put it over there. I'm being observed all the time. Even if nobody sees me, somebody sees me.
That's good. That's a
And
good.
I see me, and I'm the most important person to see me. So when I catch myself doing just dumb stuff or crabby stuff, boy, I catch it up right away. Go, stop it. Sit down. Let's take a seat, Denise. Let's have a chat.
That's good. That's good we need to do self-introspection and realize, okay, I've got to make some changes. I've got to be more um, open to change, and that's good. That's living in crescendo. That's growing. That's increasing and learning from your mistakes and going on. We don't have to be a victim to it. We shouldn't believe our own labels about ourselves.
Exactly. I mean, I've put some label. Listen, Cynthia, I'm telling you, if anybody, because we all have our internal voice, right? We all have certain things that we say to ourselves on a regular basis that we shouldn't be saying to ourselves. And honestly, if anybody spoke to me in a Walmart parking lot the way I speak to myself, I would need bail money. It would get ugly.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're self-aware and that you can
I try.
you can identify where you are and make changes. It's never too late. It's never too late to start. I love this quote by C.S. Lewis I just found that said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending."
Right.
And so maybe you're in a relationship that's not healthy. Maybe your family life. Maybe you don't have a relationship with your teenager, like you're saying, they're a little crazy and you don't relate to them, or they're not part of your life, and you can't have influence if they're not. Or maybe that there's people around you, or there's needs in your community that only you can fill. We've got to be self-aware and detect our own purposes and our own skills and put them to use. You think of one of the sections in the middle of the book is the pinnacle of success. And so you see people that have arrived, have made a lot of money, they're successful, they're doing amazing things. And yet, what are they going to do after? What are they just done? I've got examples of J.R. Tolkien and Garth Brooks and just some ordinary people too, like, that have had a lot of success. And what are you going to do next? Jimmy and Rosalind Carter are excellent examples of this, because he was the president of the United States. That's we think, well, he's reached the pinnacle of success. What else could he do after that? And the temptation is like a lot of presidents have done, you establish a library, you give expensive speeches, you keep maybe in the public eye, but that's kind of the pinnacle of what you've accomplished. But the Carters, Jimmy Carter did not get reelected. He was a president during a really hard time with the Iran hostages, and that was like half of his presidency, and some really difficult things. The economics were terrible during his time, and so he did not get reelected, and he went back to Plains, Georgia. So what are his choices? What is he going to do? Feel like he wasn't rated one of our best presidents, but what has he done since? I mean, Denise, I can ask you, what is he known for? What are the Carters known for now?
Habitat for Humanity.
That's right. They looked around them and thought, well, we can still contribute. And within 1 year, they had established the Carter Peace Center to establish better peace between nations and between leaders. And then Habitat for Humanity, they're the face of that. They have brought that to life when they realized some people have never owned a decent home. And not only did they lend their name and their work to that, but they would be there with hammers and saws and doing the work themselves into their 90s. They're still alive and still, up until recently able to contribute and doing what they can to bless other people. But truly, his most important work, and both of theirs, was still ahead of them, even though you'd think, well, he reached the pinnacle of success by being the president. But he may not go down as one of our best presidents, but by far he's our most prolific president that contributes, post-president, of any we've ever had, and has contributed in so many ways to the average person. So I really admire that.
I do too. And I didn't know much about his presidency, but I did know that he wasn't well regarded. But then, and I love history, so I started really kind of looking into it. And I saw where some, kind of why he was not regarded as a great president. But what he has done, he and she have done with their lives since then, you cannot fault them. And they're both in hospice, I believe, right now.
Yeah, I think they are. I hope they pass together. They're such a wonderful couple. He's written like 15 books or something, and I got that idea of the second half of life from him, that the idea that what are you going to do now? Look around you, look at the poor and the needy around you, look at the many needs. The hard part is choosing something and then just start. One of my father's main ideas in this book is that life is about contribution, not accumulation. And the world teaches us, society teaches us, no, it's about the name and it's about money. It's about getting things. But what value, do they really have? At the end of your life, nobody's talking about the homes and the properties and their business and their success. When they're ready to die, they're talking about primary greatness, things that really last. They're talking about their relationships, their families, their contributions, things that they care about, that they value, that will live a legacy after they're gone. And for the Carters will live a legacy of great things because they care about life being a contribution, not accumulating things.
And
So
chapter 3, it's titled People Are More Important Than Things. And going back to what you just said at the end of life, people often what they're looking at is what they didn't do, what they
that's
let slide or what skated, or they're more regretful about what didn't happen than what did happen.
that's true. That section you mentioned, people are more important than things. I tell a personal story of my parents were building a cabin up in Montana, and it was stalled for some decisions that they had to make, and it was winter, it was cold, and they were still working inside and doing some things. And so they traveled up from Utah to Montana on some icy roads, and my dad just had enough time to meet the builder for dinner that night, and then to sleep overnight at a motel, and then drive home because he had to fly out the next day somewhere mid-afternoon. And so they got to the restaurant and met the builder, and they had known that he had just gone through a terrible divorce, and that it was just had really hard on him, and they could see that he was kind of in a bad way. And so they tried to talk about that, and he said, "Oh, don't worry, let's just talk about, we just have time to talk about your cabin, and I'm fine and everything." And my mom took his hand and said, "No, Chip, we care more about you and how you're doing than questions about our cabin right now. You are important to us. How can we help you?" And he broke into tears and revealed this pain he was going through, and how it had devastated his life, and how he didn't know if he could go on and what he should do. And they spent the night talking to him and comforting him and helping him, put the pieces back together so he could continue, giving him some hope that life can be good again. You can still live in Crescendo, you can still contribute, and you'll be happy again, and things will work out eventually, but to hold on. And he said, and then they went back to their hotel and drove home the next day. When my mother passed away, he wrote us a letter, the family, and said, "I was so embarrassed that they spent the entire night talking to me and didn't address any of the needs of the cabin, the crucial decisions we had to make. But you have no idea what that meant to me and how they affirmed me as a person." And then when my father died, he came up. We went to our cabin, and it was full of bats.
I was just reading that. I actually made myself a note. It's on page
It was terrible.
66 about Chip coming back because of the bats. So tell that story.
Well, we had just buried my father a few days earlier, and I took my mom up to Montana to kind of get away and recoup and reflect on everything. And we walked into the cabin, and there were bat droppings all over, and bats literally around our heads and things. And we couldn't believe it. So we didn't know what to do. We were just in tears, and we called Chip, and he immediately came over with the whole crew and fixed the problem. Did extra work, worked in the garage, cleaned it up, spent the entire day without any compensation, and said, "It's my way of paying back your parents for being there at the most difficult, most terrible part of my life. And they were there for me. I'm happy to do this for them." And so it just meant so much to him that, he had someone who would listen to him during a crucial time. And it was more important than the decisions on their cabin. But that's a good principle I think we can always apply, that people are more important than things. My dad would always say something about, anyway, I can't think of the quote, but anyway, that was something he tried hard to live by, that things don't matter, but your people and the relationships that are close and important to you can affect a lifetime. Denise?
Sorry, I'm muted so I didn't want to cough on you. I apologize. But anyway, I kept reading as you were talking because this is such an important chapter, I think. And when the part where you shared about Chip and how he came, and your parents had really made a massive impression on him. And I suspect that he carried that forward and treated other people the way they treated him. It's just something you do. But when you go, and that was on page 66, and when you go to page 67, I think this is what you're referencing. In relationships, people are infinitely more important than things. And this is where I really got, caught up. It's vital to continually renew your basic commitment to that principle, which will unite you with those most important in your life.
Yeah. They were both good examples of that, and taught me that. And like you say, at the end of your life, you're talking about people that are important to you more than, oh, isn't it great that I had such a big boat?
Right. Who gets the boat? Mom, can I have the boat? I can see it now.
Just want more time with the people you love, or you have regrets that you don't have anyone important in your life that is meaningful, and that's hard too. But it's our choice to do what we can to care about others, and like Pablo Picasso says, find your meaning and purpose in life, and then give it away, pay it forward.
And that does make sense. We've got about 8 more minutes. So I wanted to ask you, and this is an important kind of overriding theme in the book, that service to others is a key component of living in Crescendo.
Yes, that's right. Service is really magical, because if you've got troubles and struggles and you still serve, somehow it helps you going through your what you're dealing with, if you can help others. And as I mentioned earlier, maybe if your viewers look at the book, they could see our family's own journey of living in Crescendo. I just wanted to give the example of my brother, Sean, who put this service into action during the most difficult times of his life and his family's. And that is that years ago, and this happened right after my father passed away. 4 months later, our niece, Rachel, who's the oldest daughter of 8 children in their family, she passed away from effects of depression. She could never deal with depression and things in her life. It was such a hard thing. And she died at the age of 21, much too early. And this was devastating to my brother Sean and his wife, Rebecca, as you can imagine. And so Sean, somebody told him when this happened that, it's so sorry. I'm so sorry this happened, because you will always have a hole in your heart where Rachel was. Because of the loss of Rachel, you'll always have this hole in your heart. And my brother thought about that and thought it really disturbed him. He thought, no, I'm not going to have a big hole in my heart. I'm going to grow a muscle there. And he decided, I basically have 3 choices. I can let this destroy me, I can let it define me, or I can let it change me and improve me. I can let it bless my life. And he chose the last choice. I can let it strengthen me. That's the word I was looking for. So it can destroy or define or strengthen me. And so some of Rachel's friends came to Sean and Rebecca and told them that they knew that Rachel had a great passion and love for riding horses. And she told her parents she found her voice when she was riding them. It gave her so much joy. And they came forward and said, Rachel saved us when we were discouraged and having hard times by taking us riding. And there's a lot of therapy in horse training and in that kind of thing. And so they determined to do something good of what had happened with Rachel. And so they chose to set up a nonprofit called Bridle Up Hope, which has 3 components. The first is the horse training, equestrian training, and getting this therapy through horses to help deal with depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts and things that are so hard, our comparison age that we live in, especially with teenagers. It's so difficult with social media. And so that's the first component, is the equestrian training. The second was to involve them in learning some life skills through, my brother Sean wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, which he took my father's material for 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and made it applicable to teens, more teen friendly. And so they learned some life skills on how to navigate life through the 7 habits for teens. And then the third component is service, is giving back to the barn, to helping there, to maybe mucking out stalls, to being a mentor to someone who's younger, who's struggling, to give service in the community. And so it was incredible to see with such a hard thing that happened to them and to our whole family, that these parents establishing this. That was 12 years ago. And since then, over 1,000 girls from the ages of 12 to 18. And then they made it available to women, because the mothers said, our girls are doing well, but we're struggling too. And so they made it available to women. But over 1,000 girls and women have gone through their program. And 94% of the parents have said that it was life-changing for their daughter. And so what a chance to use service and to give back when you have such a hard thing happen, and to live in crescendo rather than let it define you or destroy you and live in diminuendo. Our family really admires them, and this is our family charity now. And we admire Sean and Rebecca and their family for what they've done, and what good things have come out of such a hard situation. So
and that's the final chapter in your book. It's on page 267, Bridle Up Hope, the Rachel Covey Foundation. And it's an amazing story. And when you said that, your brother told you that somebody said you'll always have a hole in your heart, yeah. I have to tell you, Cynthia, I immediately took umbrage at that. You don't have a hole in your heart. You have memories, you have love, you have hope that, things are going to work out for everybody around the person that you lost, that they will have learned something and they still love you. There's just so many things. A hole is not, I hated that. I hated that when I heard it.
Yeah, so did he. And he thought, no, I'm gonna grow a muscle there. It's not gonna be a big hole.
Right. Listen, I know I mentioned this to you in our virtual green room because we're rapidly running out of time. I think I told you this is the fastest 60 minutes in my life every Monday and Friday, but there's so much more in this book and in your story. Would you mind coming back again, maybe in, the new year or early January or something like that? Could you come back?
Yes, I'd love to. I appreciate you inviting me. Yeah, it's been great talking with you, and I could share more if you'd like.
Oh, absolutely. I've got sticky notes all over this book. I've got pink ones, green ones, yellow ones. They all have different meanings. The pink ones are like, oh, go back to this one. It's really important. So before I let you go, Cynthia, where can people find you? And do you have any last minute kind of thoughts, or, we're right now we're in Thanksgiving, Christmas is coming up. We're talking about, being of service to other people. You mentioned the cans of food, and I had read somewhere, and, this kind of stuff that pops up during the holidays, people do want to be helpful, even if it's just making suggestions. And people were talking, and I saw this multiple times, so it stuck with me. But when you mentioned the can of food, it came right back. And people say, okay, you go to the food banks and, they get their Thanksgiving meal, but they're not getting butter. They're not getting can openers. Yeah. You've got, a box of potatoes, but you don't have anything to mix it with. Here you've got, maybe a can of yams, but you can't open the can. And there was just so many different things that people don't even think about. They're saying, oh, well, I'll throw this can of beans in the box when I'm walking out the grocery store. And there's a lot of things, but stop and think and ask people what they really need.
That's really good. There's so many needs around us. You really don't have to look far. Like I said, start with your family. Look in your neighborhood. Is there a neighbor across the street that's lonely, that their yard's, yellowing and they don't have visitors? I mean, somebody in your church or your community, somewhere you can make a difference. My father always said that life is a mission, not a career. And so my challenge, I guess, to your listeners as we close is that is look for your own unique mission. Look for ways that you can contribute in your way. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be huge. One older man loved to fix up bikes after he retired, and he was known as the bike man in town. Any kid knew that if they needed a bike, they could go to him, and he would find one for him, or redo a bike, fix it up. And at his funeral, there's hundreds of bikes lined up by kids that rode their bikes to the funeral as a tribute to his life. He had a skill in being able to do that. So just a small contribution can make a huge difference. And I just my book is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, anywhere that you can buy books. I usually use LinkedIn more than anything. So just Cynthia Covey Haller at LinkedIn if you want to connect. But I really appreciate this opportunity to speak about the crescendo mentality and to challenge your listeners that don't believe that you're done, no matter what age and stage you're at, and no matter what you're experiencing. You still have great contributions ahead to make, and go find them and use your R&I. Make it happen.
That. And, I'm so glad you said this at the end of the show, because that really does encompass what we've been talking about and what the book is about, what your family is about. So I sincerely appreciate you being with me here today, you spending time with me, and you've shared your online presence and your preferred means of contact. So I don't need to ask that again, but thank you so much. And I very much look forward to having you come back soon so we can, there's parts, I've got sticky notes, seriously, they're everywhere. I've got some questions, observations about some of these pages that I think people really need to be going, now that's interesting. I never would have thought of it that way. Where do I get the book? So anyway, listen, Christmas is coming, y'all. Get the book. And I'm not joking. It would make a perfect gift for family, for friends, for your colleagues. This is something that we all need to live life in crescendo. Cynthia, thank you so much. And listen, happy holidays, and we'll talk again.
Thank you, Denise. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving and Christmas season as well. And all the best to your listeners. I appreciate being on your show.
Thank you. So to my audience, as we conclude today's episode, your feedback really does mean a lot to me. So if you found the show helpful, please support us with a quick review on iTunes, and your input is vital, because I have a mission, and my mission is to inspire and empower more individuals by bringing these tremendous guests onto the show. So don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a review, and share your Partner in Success Radio with friends and family. And be sure to find Cynthia Covey Haller on the web and connect with her. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Cynthia, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Denise. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
You too.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.